They are freaking adorable together. Oh my God. The priest that goes to their village that sucks. I don't fucking need to hear about his experience. I don't care. He's crazy. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Just here to talk about some friggin' books that I have read recently. So the very first one is a DNF. This was back in November, right? I had read The Bone Shard Daughter and I didn't love it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I liked it enough and I was curious, so I picked up The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is technically adult fantasy, I think, like epic fantasy. We have bone shard magic, an emperor who's maybe evil, maybe doing weird, shady stuff. We don't know. We have the civilians who are unhappy with the emperor's rule. We are following three kind of main characters and, you know, things ensue, what have you. And yeah, this one, I picked it up, even though I didn't love the first book. I was still like curious enough, but I DNF'd at 12% because I just realized that I kind of don't care. I just didn't really care that much. I was reading it and I was just kind of like, I'm not that curious, actually. If I go to sleep tonight and I don't know what happens in the rest of this story, I'm fine. That's fine with me. I wasn't loving my experience of reading the story enough, so I gave up. Next, I got my physical arc. Yay, I hardly ever get physical arcs, so I'm always so jazzed. But yeah, Evocation by ST Gibson, the author of Dowry of Blood and Robber Girl, which I've both read and enjoyed. This is coming out May 28th of 2024. The premise, I will just read the little synopsis here. When a family curse threatens David's life, he will turn to the only person he's ever trusted, his ex-boyfriend Reese, which means he will have to open his heart to Moira, Reese's wife. Dark academia and urban fantasy combine in this richly imagined novel set in a fictitious, magic-riddled Boston. This is the first book in a 4-book series, and yeah, I enjoyed this. I will say that to start. So yeah, thank you to Angry Robot Books, Carolyn in particular, for giving me an arc of this for an honest review. And I will preface this with saying I tend to not gravitate toward dark academia. If you've been here a while, you know that. Usually if there's some big popular dark academia, oots, wow, I'm like, no, thank you. I avoid it. I don't care. Because I tend not to like it. And same thing with kind of like occult type stories. I can like them sometimes depending. I mean, like The Diviners is definitely that, and I do enjoy it. But more often than not, it is very much dark academia where we're following people at like some Ivy League college, right? I don't love that. So I was unsure if I would really vibe with this book or not because of that. But I personally feel like it's not super dark academia as far as my like understanding of it, I guess. It's more like secret society occult stuff, and like the one main character is they're well into adulthood. The one main character is a like high-powered lawyer, and I think the other one is he a professor? God, now I don't even know Reese's job. I can't recall. At any rate, we're not following people who are at college, at university, at some Ivy League thing. Like, that's the dark academia that I don't like. Like, when we're actually following people in an Ivy League school and they're like going to their classes and they're being privileged assholes. I hate it. So I was very happy to see that that's not actually what this was really at all. And I ended up really enjoying it. There were a couple things that kind of I wish had been explained a little bit more like earlier on or at all, particularly a clear explanation of why Reese and David broke up in the first place, and why they were so toxic together. We keep getting told how toxic they were and that like they have to stay out of each other's lives because they'll just fall back into these toxic patterns. But it was kind of nebulous, like why and how. Like I want to see an example of how they were together to really get this instead of you just telling me like, no, they were toxic. So that was a little bit too nebulous for me. Like we knew that David is an alcoholic. That's pretty early on, like that's clear. So I assumed it had something to do with that and just his behavior, but it's not really like a clear, hey, this is why. And also like the timeline of their relationship and then the breakup and then Reese meeting Moira and marrying Moira, it was all a little muddy to me and seemed also kind of rushed, like for Moira and Reese and their marriage. Seemed like they hadn't been married all that long and didn't even date that long before they got married. And so I was like, how long had he been broken up with David before he met? Like, it was all a little bit like nebulous, like I said. And then there was like an incident that happened that made Moira and Reese like completely cut out David from like interacting with them and like banished from their home. And that event, without spoiling anything, felt like they were being a little bit dramatic to me. Like, without saying specifics, it was essentially just they had asked for his advice for some like supernatural stuff that was going on in their house. He gave them his opinion. He does not know Moira, mind you. He's not familiar with her. He doesn't know her really. He just knows who she is at this point. And he gave his opinion, and it was kind of like thinking that Moira had like ill intentions, basically. Being very vague here, but he gave an opinion that implied, I think Moira might have bad intentions, perhaps. And they were like so horribly offended. And like this was some traumatic event for them that he said this. And I was just kind of like, he doesn't know her. He's just giving his opinion based on the facts he has and like his general impression. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of silly, their like reaction to that. However, all of that being said, getting to know these characters, like I thoroughly enjoyed following these characters, getting to know them, seeing their dynamics, like developing their relationships with each other, developing. All that character work was top tier. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I felt like the character descriptions and development just flowed very seamlessly, very effortlessly. Towards the beginning of the book, I was kind of like, how I'm feeling, I don't know if this is one where I care to continue with the series. By the end of it, though, I definitely do. It's one of the, I'm a very plot-driven reader. I've talked about this. I have a whole video talking about how if I have to pick, I am plot-driven. Of course, the goal is to love the plot and the characters, right? But I can kind of feel about characters and like love the plot and give a book 5 stars. It's very rare for me though to like love characters and feel about the plot and give 5 stars, which is the case here. I really do love these characters, but the plot is kind of like, I don't care. It's not, I don't think it's bad by any means. I just kind of, it was there. The plot was there to me. But like Reese and Moira are so precious together. Oh my God, I love them. I love their relationship dynamic. Moira is the best. Ugh, Moira is amazing. And yeah, the dynamics between the three of them was very interesting, and I'm just intrigued to see where it goes. I will say there's definitely like poly things going on. Perhaps not exactly what you might anticipate, but it's very, very interesting and compelling, I would say, this dynamic that gets developed between the three of them. So I thoroughly enjoyed, not like my new favorite or anything, but I quite liked it. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. So I'm highly anticipating the rest of the series. By the way, this is not the final cover. I'll pop it up here somewhere with the final. It's very similar, but it has a different like image in the middle. Honestly, I kind of like this better. I'm not gonna lie. I really like this imagery here in the middle. There's that one. Look for this coming next year. The next one was a library book I grabbed. The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is a completed trilogy, adult fantasy that's very like folk tale, fairy tale. I think it's a folk tale like reimagining, essentially. And this is quite beloved by pretty much everybody that I know who's read it. Like my other booktube pals who've read this, like love the series, love this book. I was expecting to like it a lot more than I did, which was kind of a bummer, just with all the hype around it. It's set in like a very like Russian, I think it is Russia. It's like alternate, yeah, at the edge of the Russian wilderness, but it's like an alternate world, obviously. We're following Vasilisa, this young girl. It's just, I don't know, folktale type stuff. There's like spirits that like live in the house and around the woods and stuff, and Vasilisa can see them and interact with them. And then she gets a new stepmom who comes and who's like very Christian, terrified of anything. She can see the spirits too, but she's terrified of them and makes everyone stop like giving them gifts and things, and shit starts to hit the fan, basically. And like crops start dying and whatever. So I liked this well enough, all right? I will just tell you, I gave it 3 stars. I was expecting to give it way more than this based on the hype, but that's not a negative rating for me by any means. 3 stars is just like, to me, that's like directly like middle of the road. It's like, this was fine. It was fine. It was just a little underwhelming. This was quite underwhelming for me, I'm not gonna lie. The middle especially, like it dragged, and this isn't even that long of a book, but my God, that middle portion dragged on and on forever and ever, it felt like. That was kind of my biggest drawback, was I got just kind of bored. I got kind of bored for a fair amount of this book. And another thing is, oh my God, I just really, you're not supposed to like him, this character. I can't remember his freaking name. The priest that goes to their village that sucks. Everybody hates him. He's the worst. Well, no, they don't. Everybody doesn't hate him, but he sucks. Can't remember his freaking name right now. Constantine, I think. He's like a Claude Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. That type of character, that priest who's like obsessed with Esmeralda and like very perverted, creepy, fucking weirdo way, like a psycho. That's Constantine. And again, you're not supposed to like him. It's just like a not fucking fun reading experience for me. This religious fervor, pervert, weirdo type of guy, like, who just like hates women for tempting him by simply existing. Like, it's some woman's fault that he feels desire toward them, and so she must be taken down. Like, ugh. Again, I know I'm not supposed to like him, but it's just not fun to read. It's not fun to read. I don't fucking need to hear about his experience. I don't care. He's crazy. I definitely found this to be a well-written story, and the main character, Vasilisa, loved her. She's great. Like, she's a great heroine. Thoroughly enjoyed her as a character. She's badass. But this, like, kind of fairy tale type of story, it just did not vibe with me. And I shall not be continuing with the rest of the series, I am afraid. Next, I picked up A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. I will read the synopsis for this one. Vilasan Vin Aro never planned to marry at all, let alone a girl from neighboring Tithena. When an ugly confrontation reveals his preference for men, Vel fears he has ruined the diplomatic union before it can even begin. But while his family is ready to disown him, the Tithenai envoy has a different solution. For Vel to marry his former intended's brother instead. Cathari Aduria always knew he might end up in a political marriage, but his sudden betrothal to a man from Ralia, where such relationships are forbidden, comes as a shock. With an unknown faction willing to kill to end this new alliance, Vel and Kay have no choice but to trust each other. Survival is one thing, but love, as both will learn, is quite another. So, that's the setup, right? First thing, definitely check out content warnings for this one. I notated warnings for sexual assault. I will say, like, non-penetrating R word. And then homophobia for sure at one point. And then some suicidal, like, ideation, suicidal thoughts, and a suicide, like, near attempt. Like, not an attempt was made, but, like, an attempt was almost made. And we see that occur. So, warnings for those things for sure. So I'll first talk about the characters. I thoroughly enjoyed reading both of these POVs, Kay and Vel. They were likable and interesting enough, and they both had a fair amount of internal growth that we saw, and that was definitely like a high point for me. Also, watching their relationship develop was so precious. They are freaking adorable together. Oh my God. This is the kind of romance I really like, I've learned. The care and understanding that they show one another, the patience and like grace they give each other, top tier. It was just like a nice little breath of fresh air. There were no stupid misunderstandings, miscommunications, mucking things up, and like causing tension. And I just really appreciated that. For pacing, I will say that the middle part of the book did get a little bit slow, I would say. I didn't feel like I was slogging through it. It wasn't the same feeling as the middle of The Bear and the Nightingale, where I was like, oh my God, get on with it already. But there were points where I was just kind of like, okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. It was more so that, like, you know, in the synopsis, they mentioned this like mysterious faction that wants to end the alliance. There's all these incidents that keep happening, these like attacks or attempted attack. and another attempted attack, and here we go again. And through this whole thing, there's like a mystery of like, who's behind all of this, and is it all connected? We don't know. And it's like, after every incident, it's like we got to list out everything we know about this mystery and assess each point of the mystery and who it could be and why it could be them, and maybe it could be them. And we did that like several times where it started to feel a little bit tedious. For the plot, I will say this whole big mystery fell a little bit flat for me, for sure. I was intrigued, and then I was kind of frustrated and kind of losing patience, and then I was intrigued again. And then the way they figured it all out, I won't say here because I'm being spoiler free, but it was quite silly. So it really made those like kind of tedious conversations extra pointless. I was just like, okay, why did we have to do all of that then? But overall, I definitely enjoyed this. While the plot wasn't necessarily my favorite and the middle part kind of was a little slow, or like the pacing was a little off for me, it never felt like a slog. I never once thought about DNFing it at all. I really liked these characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed the romance between them. It was so sweet and precious. And there's a fair amount of representation, like a variety of representation in this book. And obviously, even if two people have a similar life experience or are both from a marginalized community, they can have wildly different like individual experiences with this and feelings on it and everything. So whenever there is like a variety of representation that's on the page, clearly, obviously, like purposefully put in there, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is just that it seems to be handled with care and consideration and seems nuanced and accurate based on my knowledge of this representation, right? I will say for the sexual assault, like survivor rep, I fortunately do not have personal experience with this, like, so I can't say from a personal perspective, but it seemed like it was very much handled with care and consideration. This is a major kind of internal growth point for one of these characters, is coping with this thing that happened to them, and like coping with it and like grappling with what it means about them or what they think it means about them, and all that survivor stuff that if you're an avid reader or if you've experienced it or just talk to anybody who has experienced it, those things that they go through, that process, right? And I will say too, the mental health difficulties that we saw, the suicidal ideation and like almost attempt, were due to this assault that happened. It wasn't a character who like regularly suffered with suicide ideation. It was due to this thing that happened. They were now having these difficulties. There is some disability rep as well. There is a character who is mute and uses sign language. I, unfortunately and embarrassingly, do not know any sign language or anything. And this isn't like American Sign Language. It's like their made-up sign language, obviously. But it seemed that this was represented well also, and with care and consideration. And again, I don't have personal experience with it, but it seemed well done. There's obviously a lot of queer rep in this. Gay, bisexual. One of the characters is bisexual. There's several characters. That's the thing. The kingdom we're in for the most part, once Vel leaves his kingdom and goes off, which is in the first few chapters, this other kingdom we're in, Tithanai, is very queer normative. It's not a problem at all for people to be, married to the same gender, non-binary, genderqueer, trans. This is all very just normalized in their society and like not an issue at all. And so that was cool to see. Also in regards to like race, this world seemed to be very diverse in regards to racial diversity. And I don't recall there being any instance of any kind of racial prejudice. I don't believe so. There was a lot of like queer phobia in the other kingdom, for sure. It's not queer normative there, but I don't remember there being any mention of race being like, ooh, we don't like them because of that, or there's prejudice against these people because people are idiots over there. I don't think there was any. So that was also neat to see in a fantasy world. So I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. Like I said, when talking about Evocation, like if I love a plot and feel kind of like about characters, I'm way more, it's like I'll rate it higher. But if I love the characters and I don't love the plot, it's like I don't tend to rate it higher because I am more plot driven than character driven. But I did really love these characters. So 3.75, almost 4. I was like almost there. And that's it. That is what I have finished. There's one that I'm in the middle of that I'll probably finish soon. Actually, two that I'm in the middle of that I'll probably finish soon, but have not just yet. If you've read any of these or are interested in any of them, do let me know in the comments below, or just leave an emoji to say hey. Let me know you're watching. Always appreciated. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.